Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Brannigan Communications Podcast. I'm joined today by Julie Doherty and Nick Kudris. Sorry, I screwed up your last name.
I think it sounded good.
We're off to a bad start.
The best pronunciation of my last name that I've heard in a while.
Well, you say it.
Kudris.
So my second one was right.
Well, no one gets
two
it right.
times.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is kind of a weird one because today we're talking about storyboards based on a staff presentation that Nick, you gave a couple weeks ago. The caveat is I was not there for the staff presentation, so this is kind of a learning experience for me as well. So, Nick, maybe just since I wasn't there, do you want to just kind of lay out a little bit of what the presentation was about without, re-presenting it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So our initial thought was to kind of allow everyone to visualize sort of a marketing or a client project via storyboards. And like storyboards, if you don't know, are like a piece of paper, like squares kind of set up linearly that display or visualize or have notes on a story. So our thought was we can kind of put the ball in everyone's court and see what they visualize, and I think we had some good results. So
I know I looked into storyboards a little bit. Who typically would create one? So we can get into maybe some of it, how it might apply for us here at Brannigan. Mm-hmm. But generally, who creates a storyboard? Is it who on a movie staff or a video staff would do that?
So anyone could really do it. I remember when I was a little kid, I did a little Star Wars storyboard that was kind of lame, but cute. On a movie set, I would say maybe the director would visualize, kind of draw out something for an editor and then hand it over to the editor to, because a director, when they're shooting a movie, they have their vision for what they want. And actually, we used a Star Wars example, but so usually the director will hand it over to the editor, maybe the producer, or maybe there are execs that have specific needs that they need to implement into this video, whether it be like sponsorship or product placement or something that they'll hand over. So really the sky is the limit as far as who can do one and who would do one. Basically, it's just a communication tool, and it's a very powerful one too.
Yeah. I was kind of looking through it. That question came from the idea that a lot of the storyboards that I was looking at, and I know there was an emphasis in your presentation looking through it on, doesn't have to be good art necessarily.
No, it does not.
But a lot of the ones I looked at were pretty impressive looking, even for sketches, they were nice. So I was just wondering, you have to have some sort of a kind of an artist background professionally to do it, not to say that, you can't employ a storyboard if you can't draw anything.
Right. Yeah. The focus is definitely on kind of conveying the story and not so much on artistic ability. But maybe there's artistic directors or directors of photography who kind of can do it and kind of draw something out. So.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, do you think they do a lot of that for let's say I just saw The Lion King, for CGI stuff? Do they do a lot of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another example we had is comic books do it. It's kind of just naturally how comic books are.
That's what it reminded me of.
Pane to pane, panel
That's
to panel.
True.
Mm-hmm.
So I think animation, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I want to get back to one other question I have in terms of work, but back to the staff presentation. So you laid out storyboard, how to use it, what it could be effective for, and then you had people kind of split into teams and do what? Because I was looking at this part and I did not understand what I was looking at.
So basically, we kind of wanted to tie it back to client work and make it something that we can relate back to our company. So we made up all these little clients for our teams to use, and they basically had a project, either a social media campaign or an Instagram stories or a commercial or something like that they were going to use. And the thought was you have to make this little promotional storyboard for the product or the sale or event or airline launch was one of them. And then that's how you visualize this piece of creative that was going to be part of this campaign for these clients.
So you guys gave the teams the product name and like what it was?
Yep, the campaign idea, the company name, and then pretty much we were like, go crazy.
Okay, so then Julie, you were on...
I was on Air Pitbull team.
What?
Ours was, we had to figure out, I think Pitbull was having a contest for his new airline, and so ours was developing a campaign for the contest. So we storyboarded that out, and I think we did like a trip to some Caribbean island or something for the party, and then just like drew out the campaign, or it was more like not like an ad.
Sounds like yours was like a commercial.
It was more of a commercial.
Most of them were more advertising, social media kind of video focused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had, it was good fun. I love Pitbull.
How did it turn out?
Good.
It was good. So yeah, she had they had you played the song too.
Yeah.
So there was like a
didn't
musical element to it that they added.
So would Pitbull be playing through the whole flight?
I think so. It was kind of a posh flight. We had people with champagne and everything, and storyboarded that out. So yeah, it was kind of like a luxury plane.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Sounds amazing.
It does.
And the thing about storyboards, like the more details, the better. So like she said, champagne, and it's posh and it's luxury.
And I think we had like celebrity guests on the plane too, and we storyboarded all that out.
So how did you like that process of have you storyboarded a lot before that?
No, I have not. I like it because actually I've grown up like drawing and stuff, so right. I like doing that. So for me, it was fun. I don't think the intern on our team, Lindsay, did all of the drawing, and she did pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then Janet and I just we all talked through it, and then we had Lindsay talk through each like board, and we drew it that way.
Mm-hmm. So you felt like it was a good way to kind of plan something out. I mean, I can see it in some ways versus just like writing something out.
Yeah, like I saw you doing it the other day on your desk.
But there's no real sketches on there.
No, but you were still using it
doing
as
a hybrid version.
Yeah, and I think that's okay because you're still conveying your vision with words, and notes are fine too. Words are fine too.
I think we had notes on each bottom of the.
Yeah, it's not like there's no words on it.
You see the timeline, and you see how everything should be progressing. That's really the main point of these.
Yeah, and one thing, just researching for this that I saw that was interesting that made sense to me is by drawing it out before you are actually shooting the video, you can kind of see like how you might want something to be framed, or if you want to add certain things to scenes or something like that. And that does make sense to me as like you can't really think about it until you visualize it maybe. Right,
and there have been times when I've done interviews, like these talking head interviews, I always kind of like to sketch like it's basically a square with a circle in it, but I can see where I want his head to be, where I want his eye line to be, or his or her. So I think having that is a great way to get ideas out.
So do you use it a lot in your your position?
I've been more and more. Okay. I have found. We did something for a client recently, and I didn't have to sketch anything, luckily, because we had a lot of stock footage that we were using, and I kind of just screen grabbed those and kind of put
so
those
you can do that too, like screen grab and...
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a lazier way to do it, but...
Well, but that's one of the questions I had, that we are working on this project where we had all of the footage. So I was kind of curious, like how we're using storyboards for this particular project. It seems like for a lot of movies, they're storyboarding something that's about to be created, like this whole world, and they are kind of controlling it.
Yeah.
how it's going to look and feel through these storyboards. We are sort of like working backwards in this case.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that, you know, like I said, it's a communication tool. So certainly when you have a pre-plan, production plan in place, and you know, sometimes there's a story there, and you already know what's going to happen, and you want to get it out there. So that makes sense. And then sometimes you just have to communicate what you're thinking for this particular project, and that's totally fine.
I guess it's more like what I'm thinking is when you're shooting, when you're planning for the unknown, when you're in total control of it, that's one thing. But then when you have everything, it's a known quantity. We have all this footage, now we have to go back and piece it together. The storyboards are similar, but it's also like, for me in that case, using it for this project is more of like an organizational tool.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
And I guess it is for either way.
So we're organizing the, footage we have already. So yeah.
And that's where I've seen it really be helpful, because it's not, I guess I could sketch out the existing footage and that would still make sense, but even just to like have scenes, quote unquote.
Right, and when there's a visual element to it already, like you have the footage already, I don't necessarily see the need to sketch out footage you've already shot. Like, that's redundant, I feel like. It's like the stock footage I had for the other project. Like, I wasn't going to sketch out stock footage because I have the stock footage here. I might as well put it in a timeline and see what it looks like, right?
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so like going forward, when we have these other projects that we're going to start working on at Brannigan, we're going to try to have more of a actual, we can try to adapt some of this storyboard in these projects where it is still unknown and we have to go out and do it, but before that we can try to visualize it. You think that would make sense?
Yeah, to an extent. If we're shooting something for a client and we know we're doing an interview with this person at this time, we can ballpark on how we want to frame the shots and how long we're going to hold the B-roll and how long we're going to shoot the A shots too. But another part of it is scouting locations. Like, you don't know necessarily what the place you're shooting at is going to look like with this guy or girl or whoever you're shooting with. So, maybe there's a really cool backdrop that you can utilize, and maybe that's not in your storyboard, but
you don't know until you
do. A lot of people do that for like locations?
Yeah, they'll do
storyboarding.
Like on commercial productions or Hollywood productions, they'll scout location. They have the budget for it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. In our case, in some examples, we would be showing up to the location to either shoot that day or maybe shoot the next day. We don't necessarily have the benefit of a lot of planning.
Yeah.
But I agree that we would still benefit from having some sort of a plan in place, and then always being ready for kind of organized chaos and being able to move things around.
Yeah, absolutely. My mindset when I go into shooting something is to plan as much as you possibly can and always expect it to completely change.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's a good plan for any kind of project.
Because it will. You have to roll with the punches.
Right. If you're prepared, you'll be more prepared to roll with those unexpected events as well. So, kind of wrapping up our conversation, I thought, since we were talking about storyboards, let's talk about favorite movie scenes, favorite moments in movies.
See, I'm a huge nerd on this. Like, whenever I see a really great shot that's framed really well, I'm like, oh man, that's awesome.
Do you think, you probably don't think like this, but do you think like what the storyboard looks like? Or like, because now I'm kind of thinking about, I'm even just like researching scenes for this, it's like, I wonder how they mapped that out and how close it was.
Well, like I said, I just saw The Lion King, and totally you wonder how they, especially with CGI, not how they map up each scene and animal, and it's crazy.
And you just saw...
Once Upon
a Time in Hollywood, yeah.
Was there any good shots in that?
Yeah, there's a ton of great shots, the way that he kind of captures, that period of time in Hollywood, and you can tell he really has an affection for it, the way he's kind of shooting, even if it's like Brad Pitt like driving down Sunset or Hollywood Boulevard or whatever, and he's capturing all the marquees in the background. He's bringing you into the world a lot.
Yeah, so there's storytelling elements that are just like completely necessary.
Yeah, and and just this doesn't necessarily show up on a storyboard, but like the music on the radio and like the sounds, like everything pulls together.
Really good world building. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I'm sure it would be interesting to see one of Tarantino's storyboards. I can imagine they're very detailed.
I think
that would be
there
really
might be
cool.
some online. That would be like for older projects he's done.
Yeah,
that would be cool to see.
Yeah, I was looking. There are a lot of interesting, like from classic movies, like storyboards.
Mm-hmm.
So another one of my favorite scenes to set you guys up, the kitchen scene in Jurassic Park with the raptors.
Oh yeah.
That's
Gosh, that's specific.
That's classic. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think of like one kind of piece of a movie, not necessarily like a half or something a little bit more contained than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I would have to say like Jaws, like the shark coming out of the water.
Like the beach scene, like the initial.
And now I have a love for sharks.
Oh, weird. Like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, like it's Shark Week this week on Discovery.
Well, yeah.
Is it really?
It is.
Oh, I've never seen Jaws, so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I should see
That's
it.
surprising.
You should see the first one. Anyway, just the shark coming out of the water and
Like that first introduction and the way that they set up it's like a perfect day at the beach. Everyone's having a great
and
time.
the music, like you said.
They build like the dread because you know something's coming from underneath the water. But
totally.
That's a good way to do it.
That's interesting, yeah.
You've never seen Jaws.
I gotta watch it.
Yeah.
And, I've been watching a lot of 80s movies now because I started Stranger Things, finally. Like, I just started it. I'm through season 2. And so I should maybe go back and watch it. But I was thinking, like, my scene, like, there's the scene in, I don't know, do you guys watch Stranger Things?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there's the big monster or whatever in the second season that kind of is like the kid draws out a bunch.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there are some scenes where like they kind of like he has like flashbacks or visualizes it and they use the graphics where this big monster is over the town and stuff.
Oh,
I just
yeah,
thought
yeah,
that
yeah.
It was really grand and like big and I thought that was just a great shot.
Yeah, that was cool. He was kind of storyboarding the monster.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
across his
totally.
house.
Yeah.
That's a good. The monster is good.
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. Sorry.
Yeah, but maybe I'll check out Jaws.
You need to. How can you not see Jaws?
Any other favorite scenes?
Favorite scenes.
What about Star Wars?
Star Wars, there's a bunch. Like when they're pulling up to the Death Star for the first time. They're
Or like
that's
when the
no...
Millennium Falcon goes.
Oh, with the
All that.
hyperspeed?
Yeah.
I think that was a storyboard in our prerstation.
Oh, yeah,
really?
yeah.
With like Han Solo and Chewie or like,
Yeah, they're
you
kind of
see,
sitting,
like,
you
the
see like the,
windshield.
yeah.
I'm trying to think of another scenes like just like out of Africa or something like just the whole African scene.
Well, Lion
And Lion
King.
King.
And Lion
yeah,
King
they're holding up Simba.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
That's a pretty iconic scene.
it is. I like the original one better, but the one I just saw was good.
It was good. A new one.
Yeah.
So I was like catching up with like Tarantino movies before going to see the new one.
Oh, you did?
Have you guys watched any of them?
I've seen what's the one with
Oh, so that's
John
actually-
Travolta.
Yeah. Pulp
Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. That scene is one of my favorite scenes
Yeah.
when they go on their date.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Vincent Vega and Mia Wallace. I don't know if it was Wallace.
That sounds
It's
right.
Uma Thurman.
It was Uma Thurman and John Travolta. Let's just say that. But yeah, that whole scene, like their dialogue is really great back and forth, and then they do like the little dance and stuff like that. So that's one of my favorite scenes.
That movie's crazy because it's just all over the place.
Yeah,
And,
storyboarding
like,
that it's not linear at all because things jump around and they also come back and connect to each other later in the movie or like and it's like he's playing with time, like something happened after something did in the movie, but he shows it before.
I just saw something where they were in the diner and the robber is like in the background. You like can barely notice him. It's like a frame. The robber is in the background. If you catch it, like you can see, and then like later in the movie, that whole robbery scene takes place. So
Right, they come back to it at the same time. Like stuff like that is just genius. It's awesome.
yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of his movies, but a few. Pulp Fiction.
That's another. Yeah, that was a good scene. I also had the scene in Zodiac. Always comes to my mind when he goes into the basement. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Never seen
Oh,
that.
I've never
Seen
seen
that
that.
one. That's good. It's pretty creepy, but it's
Creepy
good.
one. Is that
Robert Downey Jr.
2000s?
Yeah, David Fincher.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think I ever saw that.
That's a good one. I really liked the whole heist scene in Ocean's 11. I think is really entertaining.
Yeah,
it's just one of those scenes where like if you watch it, like if you pick it up halfway through, like you just have to like watch it because it's just so entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Or the end scene too with the fountains.
Yeah,
in Vegas.
Definitely.
And what about like, okay, now I'm kind of going off topic, but like what happens when, you know, the storyboards go wrong? Like where the editing isn't great and the continuity is kind of thrown off. Like I'm thinking of an example like The Dark Knight. Like that's a pretty classic movie. Heath Ledger, like great actor. But there are scenes, and I was like watching a recap of the editing, and there are scenes that are just, they don't make sense. Mostly action scenes. So like things like that, and then the new Queen movie biopic, Freddie Mercury,
Bohemian Rhapsody,
has a bunch of really fast cuts that like are out of place and things like that. So do you think, I guess I don't know where I'm going with this, but like do you think like storyboarding could have avoided these bad edits, or do you think the edits came about because the storyboarding wasn't there?
Do you feel like it was just a weak storyboard, or
I don't know,
or is it something with action scenes in particular that,
or is it the editing?
Yeah,
because the storyboard to the editing is a long process. I mean, it's like,
it's not like one and then the other.
Yeah,
right.
So
yeah.
It goes from way here.
Well, it's like the Dark Knight example is like there's a car chase, and like one of the cars that exploded isn't exploded in a scene later, and it's like you don't really catch these things as the viewer, but if you're like super like analytical in your editing or your filmography, like you'll notice, and you'll be like, oh.
Well, I feel like you who does that, a lot of that could catch that, but me as...
But I don't really. Don't? Like when I'm watching a movie...
But you just brought it up like
you're not paying attention to that.
That's true.
Like I'll watch videos where they talk about it and they go, oh, well, this is probably not great editing, but...
Okay. So you catch it on the back end, but
right.
you don't
When
necessarily
I'm just like watching a movie because I want to relax and watch a movie, I don't really notice. Unless it's like a really good shot and I'm like, wow, that's a really good shot.
Yeah, so you're not looking at it for editing or storyboard purposes when you're enjoying a movie?
That's like a second, it's like in the back of my mind, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you create your storyboard, but then you actually go shoot. It might be hard to go back to the storyboard after you're like, oh, well, here we go. But to keep you in check with stuff like that, I think it would be really valuable to go back and refer to it. You know?
Yeah.
If things change in the process of actually shooting, I think that's one thing. But in terms of like, making sure you're hitting the details or like how you initially wanted it, like maybe you forgot about something.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to go through like a whole movie production just to see it from start to finish. I would love that. Yeah.
That'd actually be sweet.
That would be.
It's a good documentary idea.
Wouldn't that be? Oh. But it would just be cool because like we all love movies or even TV shows or whatever. I'm sure they storyboard for episodes. Do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway.
All right. Well, any other scenes? Otherwise, I think we have done a good job explaining storyboards and their importance. We're gonna continue to use them more and more here at Brannigan. So it was a good, valuable presentation.
Yeah, I had fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a great activity. Good team building.
Air pit bull.
It was no food wars. We had to follow food wars, and it was just.
It was still good.
Not everything can have food.
Food wars were stressful, but fun.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
A reminder to all of our listeners, thank you for being out there, to like, subscribe, comment on all previous episodes, and thanks for listening.